They gave her a rifle? The laughter wasn't subtle. It wasn't whispered. It wasn't polite. It echoed across the shooting range like she wasn't even standing there. Emily adjusted her ear protection slowly, pretending she hadn't heard it. But she had. Every word. She was used to it. 22 years old. 5'4", slim frame, calm expression. She didn't look like someone who could drop a steel target from nearly 2 kilometers away. And that was exactly why they underestimated her. The regional long-range shooting competition was already buzzing with energy. Trucks lined the dirt parking lot. Expensive scopes glinted under the sun. Men in tactical gear compared ballistic charts like stockbrokers discussing investments. Most competitors had reputations. Emily had silence. She stepped out of her car carrying a hard case.
No flashy logos. No loud entrance.
Just quiet confidence. A group of guys near the registration table noticed her. One of them nudged the other. "You lost." She didn't respond. Another one smirked. "This isn't the beginner's safety class." More laughter. She kept walking. Inside the case was her rifle, custom built, carefully tuned. Every part selected after months of research and savings. She had worked 2 jobs to afford it. Late night shifts, weekends gone. Every dollar calculated. Because this wasn't a hobby for her. It was obsession. It started when she was 14. Her grandfather had taken her to a quiet open field for the first time. He didn't treat her differently, didn't speak softer, didn't assume she'd be scared. He taught her breath control before he ever let her pull the trigger. Inhale, exhale, pause, then decide. Not shoot.
Decide.
That stuck with her. By 16, she was reading about ballistics for fun. By 18, she was out shooting adults at local ranges. But she avoided attention. She didn't want applause. She wanted precision. Back at the competition, registration staff glanced at her form. "You sure you're in the right category?" the man asked. "Open long range," she replied calmly. He looked up at her, then back at the paper, then at the rifle case. "Targets go past 1,500 meters, he said carefully. "I know." Pause. He handed her the badge. The competition format was simple but brutal. Shooters would attempt progressively longer targets. Wind unpredictable, temperature shifting, steel plates barely visible even through high-end optics. Most people plateau around 1,200 meters. Anything past 1,600 required not just skill but mastery. She found her assigned lane, set down her mat, opened the case. The rifle drew immediate attention. Not because it was flashy, because it was serious. Heavy barrel, precision optic, clean build. One of the earlier guys wandered closer. "That yours?" he asked. "Yes." "You shoot that thing?" She looked up at him. "Yes." He chuckled. "Recoil's gonna surprise you." She didn't answer, because she knew something he didn't. Recoil isn't what surprises you. Wind does. The first round of shots began at 800 meters. Most competitors hit clean. So did she. No reaction. 1,000 meters. Hit. 1,200 meters. Hit. The laughter had faded. Not replaced with praise. Just quiet. But whispers started. Beginner's luck. Probably got a spotter feeding her corrections. She won't hold past 1,500. The wind began to shift slightly from left to right. Subtle. Dangerous. The kind that ruins overconfidence. At 1,400 meters, several shooters missed their first attempts. Emily didn't rush. She lay prone behind the rifle, cheek resting lightly against the stock. I steady behind the optic. Inhale. Exhale. Pause. Then decide. She adjusted 2 clicks. Squeezed. The distant steel rang half a second later. Clear hit. A few heads turned fully now. No one laughed. But no one clapped either. At 1,600 meters, tension thickened. Even seasoned competitors struggled. Impacts were harder to see. The air shimmered slightly with heat distortion. She watched the grass. Not the flag. Grass tells the truth. She made her calculation. Dialed carefully. Shot. Miss. A rare, clean miss. Someone behind her muttered, "There it is." She didn't react. She adjusted, waited longer this time, let the wind settle into rhythm. Shot again. Ping. Hit. Now the silence felt different. Not dismissive. Heavy. Respect hadn't arrived yet, but doubt had left. Then the announcer's voice carried across the range. Next target distance, 1,840 meters. A murmur rippled through the crowd. 1,840 meters. Over a mile. Even attempting that shot was ambitious, making it nearly unheard of under these conditions. One of the earlier men shook his head. "No way." Another laughed nervously. This is where reality kicks in. Emily stayed still. She checked her data card. 1,840 meters. The number didn't intimidate her. It excited her, because this was why she came. Not to silence laughter, not to prove strangers wrong, but to test the edge of her own limits. She chambered around slowly. Behind her, someone whispered again. Who even gave her a rifle? She heard it this time, and this time, she smiled, because in a few minutes they were about to find out exactly who did, and why that question was about to disappear forever. The range went quiet in a way that felt different. Not casual silence, not distracted silence, focused silence. The 1,840-meter target stood barely visible in the distance. Through the naked eye, it was nothing more than a faint blur against the landscape. Even through high-powered optics, it shimmered behind heat waves rising from the ground. This wasn't just about aim anymore. This was physics. Wind drift, bullet drop, spin drift, Coriolis effect, air density, barrel harmonics. At this distance, the bullet would be in the air for nearly 3 full seconds. 3 seconds is a lifetime for wind to change its mind. Emily settled behind the rifle. Her spotter, a quiet older man assigned randomly at registration, leaned slightly toward his scope. He hadn't said much all day, but now his voice was calm and steady. "Wind's dancing midfield," he murmured. "Mirage is pushing right." She nodded once. Her data card was clipped beside her. Handwritten notes, tiny corrections from earlier distances. She adjusted her elevation turret slowly, precisely. Click, 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 each movement deliberate. Behind her, a small crowd had gathered, some pretending not to care, others openly watching. One of the earlier skeptics folded his arms. "Waste of ammo," he muttered. Another competitor had already tried and missed twice. His frustration was obvious, because 1,840 meters doesn't forgive ego. Emily inhaled, exhaled, paused. Then she did something unexpected. She didn't shoot. She lifted her head slightly and just watched. Through her optic, she studied the grass nearly halfway to the target. Tiny flickers, subtle shifts, the mirage bending like invisible waves. She waited almost 30 seconds. Someone whispered, "She's nervous." No, she was listening. Wind isn't random. It has rhythm, pulses, it breathes. And when you wait long enough, you can feel when it settles into pattern. Her spotter spoke again, barely audible. "You've got a window." That was all she needed. She returned her cheek to the stock, finger resting lightly against the trigger.
No rush, no tensión.
Just pressure. The rifle cracked. The sound echoed across the open land. Then came the waiting. At shorter distances, impact is instant. At 1,840 meters, you fire, and then you wait. 1 second, 2, 3. Somewhere in that stretch of suspended time, doubt tries to creep in. Did the wind shift last second? Did you overcorrect? Was the elevation perfect? Even the skeptics leaned forward slightly. Then, ping, faint, distant, but unmistakable. The steel rang. For half a heartbeat, no one reacted, like their brains needed confirmation. Then the spotter said it clearly. Impact. Silence. Real silence. Not dismissive. Not skeptical. Stunned. Emily didn't jump up. Didn't celebrate. She stayed in position, cycling the bolt calmly. Because one hit could be luck, Consistency is proof. Behind her, someone finally spoke. No way. The announcer's voice cracked slightly over the speaker. Impact confirmed at 1,840 meters. Now the murmurs weren't dismissive. They were disbelieving. She adjusted slightly for the next round. The wind had shifted a fraction. Barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. She was inhale, exhale, pause, squeeze, crack. Again the long wait. Again, ping, second hit. This time the reaction was immediate. Gasps. A sharp curse from someone in the back. One of the men who had laughed earlier lowered his binoculars slowly. The laughter from the morning felt like it had happened days ago. Emily sat up finally, removing her eye from the scope. Her expression didn't change much, but her eyes did. Calm, certain. The announcer couldn't hide the excitement now. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 2 consecutive impacts at 1,840 meters. Cameras came out. Phones lifted. The same people who had questioned her presence were now trying to capture it. One of the earlier skeptics stepped closer, staring at the rifle. "What caliber is that?" he asked quietly. She told him. He nodded slowly. "Custom build." "Yes. You dialed for Coriolis?" A slight smile. "Of course." There was no arrogance in her voice, just fact. The competition wasn't technically over. Others would attempt the same distance. A few tried. Most missed. One got close. None repeated her consistency. By the end of the round, her name sat at the top of the board. Not by a slim margin. By performance. The crowd dynamic had completely shifted. Earlier, she had been an outsider. Now, she was the reference point. People approached her with questions instead of jokes. "How long have you been shooting? Who trained you? Where'd you learn wind reading like that?" She answered politely, briefly, but the moment that stayed with her wasn't the applause. It was something quieter. The man who had said, "Who gave her a rifle?" walked up slowly. He cleared his throat. "I might have underestimated you." She looked at him calmly. "Most people do." There was no bitterness in it, just truth. He nodded once. "Hell of a shot." "Thank you." Respect doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it shows up in tone, in posture, in the way someone looks at you differently than they did hours before. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the range, the air felt lighter. Not because she proved them wrong, but because she proved herself right. She had chased this distance for months in training, missed it countless times, adjusted, refined, practiced in harsher winds. Today wasn't magic. It was math, and discipline, and patience. As equipment was packed away and conversations buzzed around her, someone whispered again. But this time it wasn't mocking. That shot was insane. The phrase "who gave her a rifle" had vanished, replaced by something else. How did she do that? And that question, that was earned. But what most people didn't realize was that the hardest part of this story wasn't the shot. It was everything she endured before anyone was watching. And that's what truly made 1,840 meters feel small. Most people only remember the sound, that distant metallic ping, the confirmation, the scoreboard, but they don't remember the years before it. Because long before 1,840 meters, there were much shorter distances that felt much harder. Emily didn't grow up surrounded by elite shooters. She didn't have sponsors. She didn't have a coach analyzing every movement. What she had was a small patch of land, an old spotting scope, and a grandfather who believed in fundamentals. When she first started shooting seriously at 14, the comments weren't encouraging. "Cute hobby. She'll grow out of it. Let her try until she gets bored." She didn't get bored. She got better. By 16, she was waking up before sunrise to practice breath control without even firing a shot. Just lying prone, focusing on stillness, training her body to obey her mind. Because long-range shooting isn't strength. It's discipline. At 18, she entered her first local competition. She finished near the bottom. Not because she lacked skill, because she rushed. She wanted to prove something. and the target punished her for it. That night, instead of blaming wind or equipment, she wrote down every mistake. Wind call too aggressive. Trigger brake rushed. Didn't wait for rhythm. That became her habit. Miss, analyze, adjust, repeat. While others bragged about their hits, she obsessed over her misses. She worked part-time at a hardware store to save money for upgrades. Every paycheck had a purpose: a better optic, match-grade ammunition, reloading equipment. She learned the science behind every variable. Air density shifts with temperature. Bullet spin causes drift. Even the rotation of the Earth matters at extreme distance. People thought she was overthinking. She was preparing. And through all of it, the subtle comments never stopped. "You're pretty good for a girl. You don't look like a long-range shooter. Must have a great teacher." She did have a great teacher, but what they never understood was that her skill didn't come from someone handing her answers. It came from hours alone, wind in her ears, notebook in her lap, trying again and again and again. The day her grandfather passed away, she almost quit. Not because she lost guidance, but because she lost the person who never doubted her. At the small service held near that same field where she first learned to shoot, she made herself a quiet promise. One day, she would take everything he taught her and stretch it as far as it could go. 1,840 meters wasn't random. It was symbolic, a distance that most people wouldn't even attempt. Because attempting it means accepting the possibility of very public failure. And that's what separates dreamers from competitors. Back at the range, after the crowd began to thin, Emily packed her rifle carefully into its case. The same case they had smirked at that morning. The same rifle they questioned, now treated with careful glances of respect. One of the younger competitors approached her hesitantly. A teenage girl, maybe 15. "You were amazing," she said quietly. Emily smiled. "Thank you. I've never seen someone shoot like that." There was something familiar in the girl's expression. Not just admiration, possibility. Emily crouched slightly so they were eye level. "You shoot?" she asked. "A little. My dad's teaching me." "Good." The girl hesitated, then added, "Some of the guys laugh at me too." Emily's smile softened. "They laughed at me this morning." The girl's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" There was a pause. "How do you ignore it?" the girl asked. Emily thought about that. "I don't ignore it," she said finally. "I outwork it." The girl nodded slowly, like she was storing the answer somewhere important. As Emily walked back toward her car, the sky burned orange over the range. Long shadows stretched across the dirt. She paused for a moment and looked back. The 1,840-meter target was barely visible now. Just a dark speck in fading light. It didn't look impressive from here. It didn't look impossible. And that was the lesson. From a distance, limits seem enormous. Up close, they're just measurements. That morning, they had laughed. Who gave her a rifle? By evening, they were asking about wind calls and ballistic charts. Respect hadn't been demanded. It had been demonstrated. And here's the truth most people miss. The shot didn't silence them. Her consistency did. Her patience did. Her refusal to quit when no one was watching did. Anyone can get lucky once. Not everyone can repeat excellence under pressure. As she started the engine and pulled away, her phone buzzed. A message from the competition organizer. Official measurement confirmed. 1:08:40 m. New event record. She stared at the screen for a second, then locked it, because records fade. Distances get broken. Someone else will come along and shoot farther. That's how progress works. But the moment when doubt turns into silence, that lasts, not because of ego, but because it reminds you something powerful. You don't need to look the part. You don't need approval. You don't need permission. You just need preparation. So the next time someone laughs, let them, because laughter travels fast, but results travel farther. Sometimes 1,840 meters farther.